The Gentleman's Code.
All right, and we're live, guys. This is the Gentleman's Code. It's your boy Ads VVG. Got a very special guest with me today. Very, very good friend of mine, Miss Aisha Enes. Guys, can we get a round of applause? Woo! Aisha, you are actually you're like the second female guest we've had on the show.
Really?
Honestly, equal opportunities doesn't work around here.
Why are you scaring all the girls away?
Because we're misogynistic.
Oh my God, you ass. Listen, I expect this 100%.
But you're actually second. But it's good, you know what it is here? Because we get a lot of requests when females come on the show. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're like, oh, I don't agree with you on this or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's absolutely fine. So it's good to actually now, like, there's certain things I do want to discuss. I'm like, oh, it's better to have this conversation when there's a female in the room.
Okay.
So it's so good that you're actually here today.
Let's go.
How are you?
I'm okay.
You're good? That's good, man.
I'm waiting.
Well, we like to start the show sometimes by just talking about, like, music is a big thing that we speak about. So I want to know what you've kind of been listening to recently. What have you been listening to?
You know what? This is going to surprise you, but I try not to listen to anything new.
Serious?
I don't listen to any new music.
How come?
I'm such a creature of habit. I have my favorites, the old school R&B jams. I listen to R&B and everything. I listen to R&B to work out at the gym. Honestly.
Serious?
Yeah, my old school
I can't do
stuff.
R&B at the gym, man. I love R&B, but I can't do it at the gym.
Best.
Who's your favorite? Who's one of some of your favorite artists? R&B artists?
Again, really old school. I like actually not that old school. Tank, you know, the 2000s. That was a good year for R&B. You know.
What about 90s?
Bit of Joe. 90s was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's kind of your thing, like really slow.
Yeah, Keisha White. I'm feeling Keisha White.
Serious?
Heather Headley. You know, I like my soul sisters.
Any, but no one from recent. You said because everything's like really old school for you.
Recent.
Not really.
Any good recent? I think the Beyonce album is good.
Which one?
The Lion King soundtrack.
Okay, yeah. That's a couple years old now.
Yeah. That was good.
But that was good. But that's kind of more like, I think that was more. It's kind of Afro, not Afro beats, but it's African inspired.
Yeah.
The album was Afro.
So to be honest, so I'm listening to recent stuff. It's more Afro beats. I think Burna Boy's new album is good. It's good, you know.
Then like R&B stuff.
Yeah. What's the battle like between Burna Boy and Wizkid? Why'd you have to choose one?
I don't know. People are childish. To be honest, there's no reason why you have to choose one. They're both fantastic artists.
Yeah, I like them both.
And I don't think you have to choose one at all. I think we just need to, as Africans, just celebrate how good their music is, really, to be honest, because they're both fantastic artists. Speaking about African music, a few years ago, I stumbled across some African French artists.
Okay.
I don't know, do you listen to any much of that sort of stuff? Not really.
No.
But I've realised, they have some artists who are just like...
Actually, I lie. Yaliviz, there's a song called Aisha. I mean, I don't know who inspired him, but that was a fantastic song.
But who is that by?
Yaliviz.
I'm not sure if I've heard of him. But I've realised them artists are huge. They do mad numbers, like they're really big. There's a few years ago I listened to like MHD, who was like, what would you call MHD? You guys heard MHD? I think he went to prison for a bit. I can't remember what happened, but he had a massive song called La Puissance.
Ah, La Puissance.
La Puissance.
La Puissance.
Yeah,
Do you know what it means?
They had a song called Champions League.
Yeah.
So I was listening to MHD for a while. I didn't understand the word that was happening.
But do you know what puissance means?
The force.
Yes, the power.
Yes.
La
I'm learning
puissance.
French, bro. Don't piss me
He's
La
basically
Puissance.
French. How do you introduce yourself in French?
Je suis.
Okay, let's get on. Forget it. It's fine.
But yeah, so it's him. There was another artist called Nizza who I was listening to for a bit. He was quite good as well. So like, yeah, my French is coming along.
Oh, yeah. You know, whenever you listen to French music, you're basically French.
Oh, really?
Have you naturalized yet?
But I can't. The thing is, I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I could be saying
you don't
a
need to know.
A whole lot of madness.
Just say it.
But it's a vibe. So yeah, that's African French artist. But R&B, old school R&B, I love it. On the way here, I was actually listening to a lot of Stevie Wonder stuff on the way here.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder's actually my favorite artist of all time. So old school R&B. Well, not R&B, that's more like soul music, but that's like a big thing of mine. But guys, speaking more recently, actually, what else have I listened to recently? Rex 32 put out a new album, which is the other day, which is quite a good listen. Who else recently? J. Cole's album is very good. Very, very good.
Wait, ain't he a basketball player now?
He is a basketball player now, which is actually really funny.
Spans.
And I thought it was really interesting about... So J. Cole, if anybody's a real J. Cole fan, you know that he was... So he went to uni, I think, to try it. I don't know if he got like a scholarship or something, but he was trying to become a basketballer. And then all these old mixtapes were like basketball themed. So like they were called like The Come Up, some other bits and pieces. So what happened is that this album is called The Off Season, and then he actually signed a contract to play with a Rwandan basketball team.
Oh wow!
The week after his album came out, which I thought was really clever. So he's playing in the Rwanda league for like a basketball team there. So random.
That's basically the soundtrack to every match.
Probably, yeah, because I think they were actually playing it during the game.
That's business.
But I think that's really clever, and he's always wanted to play. I think that was his first opportunity to play basketball professionally, and that's where he got the contract. So he just started doing it. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite rappers as well.
Can't knock the hustle.
But cool. So just basically talk to me a bit about yourself. To be honest, like obviously I've known you for a very long time, so this is kind of like a really weird conversation. But obviously I know you spoke about the fact that you grew up in Ivory Coast. Now that we've confirmed that.
Grew up in Ivory Coast.
That's what you said.
Do you know me at all? Have you met me? I did not grow up in Ivory Coast.
Okay, you didn't grow up in Ivory Coast, but you were born in Ivory Coast.
My family are from Ivory Coast.
But you were born in Ivory Coast.
I was born in France.
Bro, same thing. Listen. All right, so you were born in France, sorry. Jokes. And then you came here
when I was 4.
When you were 4.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was good. So as I was saying before, like, you know, you go to school and it's all English, and then you come home, like my dad was saying, like the front door is a border, so no English, got to speak French. So I was always like the French girl in school, which was very interesting. But the good thing is I kind of grew up speaking both languages in tangent, which is why I don't have a French accent when I speak English, but then get slightly intoxicated and the English just goes. So it's really interesting.
So the French,
I tend to swear at my son a lot in French.
Is he serious?
Like he doesn't understand.
He doesn't understand. It's like mom's just shouting, but I don't know.
And then he can't repeat naughty words.
That's a good idea. So you actually want to be, so the majority of your life actually you've kind of been.
It's mainly England, yeah.
And then in terms of your, like, I know you grew up in South London?
Yeah, Southwest.
Oh, was that?
Yeah.
What secondary school did you go to in Southwest?
Oh my days. Stockwell Park.
Them girl there, fam. I used to talk girls from there still. What year did you leave year 11?
Oh my God, I can't even remember now. I'm not telling you.
It must have been like 2005 or 4.
Who knows?
I used to roll up there all the time and scoop things anyway.
Really?
Oh, man used to do this thing. I'd have fought my life,
You're such a terrorist.
Before God saved me.
Thank God.
No, I used to know, but I didn't actually go Soccer Park, but because my school was in South, obviously we heard about those sort of schools that were around.
Yeah.
And obviously we met at uni.
It had a bit of reputation.
It did.
Well.
It happens, innit? I think that's like...
I used to go to a private school, believe it or not.
Secondary?
And then, no, primary. And then I was a bit naughty. So sending me to Stockwell Park was like my dad's version of punishment.
Serious? So were you in line to actually go to a private secondary school?
Yeah. But I did go through a really naughty phase. And then, because I went to Chestnut Grove as well.
Where's that?
Chestnut Grove is in Balham.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where our first home was.
Okay.
And then got into a bit of trouble. And then my dad was like, that's it, you're going to Africa. And then my mum was like, listen, let's compromise. Let's be reasonable.
So trouble you get to? What, beef?
You know, I was a bit of a karate kid, you know.
That's so, you know why it's so bad to me? Because you do not come across to me like the confrontational type.
Listen, God is good.
God saves. God definitely saves, bro. And then obviously like we met at uni and stuff.
Yep.
And then you finished uni. And then like in terms of your career and stuff, because this is what I kind of wanted to speak to you about.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to introduce on this show was kind of getting the different black experience in sort of just the career fields and work fields and stuff. So talk a bit about your like your career background and stuff and kind of what you do.
Yeah. Well, I've been in learning and development as an industry coming up to 9 years now.
Yeah.
I fell into it. You know, I started in sales.
Okay.
Because obviously after graduation, so I studied criminology and psychology.
I remember.
And so after graduation, I had about 3 or 4 job offers. So I was quite lucky, before the end of the summer. But then going into like the government sector, especially in probation, rehab, the kind of things that I wanted to do, you have to have a CRB check, right?
Yeah.
So because I'd never done one before, the first one you do takes a really long time because they proper go into your background. So while I'm waiting for all of that to come through, I got called by recruiters in the city. And they were offering pretty decent graduate starting salaries. And then so I looked at what I was getting in terms of the government sector, and then I looked at what the private sector was offering. And I was just kind of like, you know what? I got goals. I need to buy a house. So so I accepted. So I started off as a junior recruiter for the French market, interestingly enough. So they were really interested in me because of my language skills. So I was supporting a recruitment consultancy, you know, speaking to candidates in Switzerland, Belgium, any French-speaking country, really, just building a relationship with them. And yeah, I just had a talent for sales. And from that point on, I then found myself in learning sales a few years later. And I think the biggest turning point in my career was when I set up a key account division for a really kind of, the first company I worked for was about 200 years old. Okay. You know, so they're very, very traditional in the way they work. And they had their systems and set silos, and, you know, departments didn't typically speak to each other. So me coming in, and I'm a very curious, you know me, I ask questions. So I'm just kind of like, why is this like this? And why is that like that? And I was like, no. This is what I want to do. So immediately when I got in, I was like, I want to be in key accounts. So I joined as a BDE, which is a business development, executive. So I went to the sales director and I said, look, I've got this idea and I think you should try it. And he was like, kind of laughed. He was like, you've been here like what, under a month already? And I was like, yeah. Like, because this is where I want to be. So tell me what you look for and, you know, I can work towards it kind of thing. And he was like, okay, go away and write a business case and you still have your actual job, achieve your targets in this area. But if what you're saying, you believe it works, then make it work. And then whatever you need, just copy me into the email. You have my support. So I think he didn't take it seriously. So by 6 months, I wrote the business case. I think I turned over $500,000 in the idea that I had. So they turned it into a position and made me, the training manager for the key accounts division. So it was the first role that ever existed. And even till now, there's about 3 people doing that job. So it's quite nice that I've created jobs for people. So I think by the end of the year, in terms of leaving, I did 1.5 million in terms of the target. And I bought a flat after that because of the commission, because the commission structure wasn't set up for anyone to sell that much. Yeah. So I literally broke the system. So I was really proud of that. And then afterwards, I was like, you know what? I love training. I love learning and development. Yeah. Let me find out what else is out there. And coincidentally, I got headhunted by a learning tech company in the city of London. Because the whole point of me living out of London was that I could have a bit of work-life balance. But the way my career was going, I realized, the big bucks were I need to come back to the city. Yeah. But yeah, after working hard at that, you know, I've just kind of continued to work my way up, got some technical skills along the way. So now I'm a, digital learning consultant and
That's amazing. So wait, when you talk about, in terms of learning and developing skills, that is how to upskill people or upskill businesses technology in the way they deliver their services.
Close. So basically, in terms of our field specifically, what we do, so I did a bit of tech skills. So anyone that works in IT, so your Python, your coders and, your IT managers in terms of, standards and whatever technical training you needed, we covered that. And you had trainers that delivered that who had expertise in those areas. Where I am now is more around professional skills. So professional skills are also referred to as soft skills. And what that basically refers to is things like communication, presentation skills, conflict resolution, managing difficult conversations. So it's all those almost human skills that you need to establish a relationship with somebody to conduct your business. Yeah. So, we have a library of content around that. And so when I go into organizations, we look at what they're looking to achieve from, a learning perspective and the kind of content that they want to push out to their workforce. And then if needed, we can deliver bespoke or tailored programs to support a specific requirement. Gotcha. So I really love it. It's fun. You get to work with really big brands, big names. And, you get to learn a lot along the way, because sometimes they have funky requests and you have to look into it and then learn it as you're having that conversation with the client. So
that's interesting. And I always like to kind of really in these conversations towards the Black experience and talking about those sort of soft skills from your experience, what have you, because I kind of have my ideas in terms of how us as Black people, we sometimes struggle to adapt in the working environment or the corporate sector. From your experience, how sort of true is that, or have you come across that yourself?
This is exactly why I started coaching. 100% the reason why, because you could say that I had talent coming into the professional workforce because I picked up sales just like that. I was top salesperson in the organization. At one point, I actually had to present back to this global business because I had the highest average revenue per account. So they called it ARPA. So our CEO actually called me, and I thought, this lady butt dialed me. She's not gonna, like, who am I? Do you know what I mean? But she actually called me personally and said, Aisha, for our annual kickoff event, I need you to present back to the business why you have the highest average value per account across sales guys that had been in the business for like 10 years plus. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, I learned very quickly. I'm quick on my feet, but being driven and ambitious and a spicy Southwest London girl.
Feisty.
You know?
Spicy and feisty.
Because there were times, especially anyone that's in sales, you'll know that it gets really competitive in the team.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you'll have senior salespeople, and, you know, if you don't put your things correctly in the CRM, then whose opportunity is can be quite disputable. So they could actually pull strings because they're the senior person and be like, I'm taking this deal because actually it's my account. So you can lose your sale on a technical, right? And
Were
that
you,
used to
were
do
you
my
the
head
only
in.
black person in your team?
Yes.
You were. How
A
do you find
lot
that?
of the times I am the youngest person in the room. So now, you know, previously before lockdown, I would go into, so I speak to CLOs, chief learning officers, heads of talent, you know, so like sometimes mid-level, but technically because they're the ones making the strategic decisions around the digital systems, because it's quite hefty in terms of cost, right? So I'm often the youngest person in the room, the only black girl in the room, and the only female in the room because I'm in tech, right? So my team are guys, you know. So it's always been very, very interesting for me navigating the workforce because I never really saw a reflection of myself in my teammates, right? So I think for me, I did a lot of I got mentors along the way. They didn't look like me, but in terms of those soft skills and having the emotional intelligence to deal with conflict at work in a calm, comprehensive and cohesive way without letting your passion take over, you know?
And what sort of, when you talk about obviously being the youngest, being the only female, being the youngest black woman, how would that conflict, what would that look like?
I think it was just rage sometimes, you know, because
From other people to you?
No. From the other side.
How would you kind of feel that sort of negativity from?
I think there was like a lot of unconscious bias, right? So often if I interviewed or I'm sitting in the room, the first bit of feedback I get was like, you're really articulate. And I was like, what did you expect?
Yeah, of course.
You know?
I've had those ones a few times.
So I feel like because my voice sometimes fit and they felt like I could communicate on their level, then I was a little bit more accepted than, you know, for example, if your linguistics didn't really fit into the way, you know, that they spoke. I still don't understand how I got my accent. I did grow up in Southwest London. I don't know. Maybe I read too many books growing up. But yeah, I just felt like there was unconscious bias. Fortunately for me, I've never kind of, touch wood, been on the receiving end of direct racism. But I do feel like there sometimes when things happened, you know, people have this kind of like internal fear, like, oh my God, this is gonna escalate, you know, because of who she is or maybe how she looks. And it's like, but why? If this was, you know, another person of the same color, then would you say the same, you know, would you say the same things? Would you expect the same outcomes? And sometimes it's just education because, you know, I've come across, like, I have some colleagues that I've met at work right from the beginning of my career and I'm still friends with till now, you know, and they are a different race to me, they are a different culture. And sometimes it's just all about mingling and educating each other because people's apprehension is not always racism, right? So it could just be a lack of knowledge into your culture and a lack of knowledge into you as who you represent kind of thing. So it's more unconscious than that.
I feel like, and I have this conversation with other black friends who, and I'll start off by saying this as well, black women are doing very well in those sort of like mid to senior level positions now in the UK. Extremely, extremely well. And the thing about a lot of black women is that they find themselves isolated when they're in that position
100%.
because they're more likely to be the only person in that room at the time. And some of the sort of stigmas that you would have to kind of deal with being in that room or people expecting you to be a certain way. So I've had conversations with friends who say that they try not to be aggressive because you don't want to look like the angry black woman.
Yes, you have to change your tone.
Change your tone.
Soften it
Do you find
up.
yourself having to be over friendly?
I was told to soften
To soften?
by a mentor. And you know what? Again, when I say this, I don't feel like she was saying it from a racial perspective, right? Because I think, so that first job that I mentioned, that sales role, when I approached the head of my department saying, I want to work on your team, you know, she was like, that's great, let's work on it, but do you mind having a coffee with me, you know, once a week? And then that once a week turned into, you know, more regular conversations. She became an unsuspecting mentor, because she said to me, you know, when I met my husband, he called me the little firecracker because...
Is she white or black?
She was white.
Okay.
She was like, I recognize that same
In you.
fiery, you know, drive in you. And she was very, very senior. And she was like, as a woman sitting on the exec team, you know, there are certain ways in which I have to communicate to be taken seriously. So I think as a woman as a whole, when you're at that level and you're the only one, and especially when you're surrounded by men, like your passion can be, well, passion is an emotion, but you know, women have the stigmas that you're over emotional.
Absolutely.
So if you try to make a point where you are driven by passion, then almost the message gets lost in the delivery.
There's a theory that I've heard based on that what you've just said, that you see women that are in very senior positions, like in the corporate world.
They're cold.
They're cold.
Yeah.
They're like, people in quotation marks will say they're bitchy. They're not very nice people. And it's almost like, do women have to do that to get to a certain point? So for example, you know how with men, it's almost like with men, in order to get to a certain place, you just have to be one of the lads.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what field of work you're working is, whatever one of the lads looks like in that field, be one of the lads. So like, whether that's like, whether you're working in a football organisation, whether you're working in a bank, like whatever the lad culture is, be that.
Yeah.
If people are going, if the CEO or whatever, they're going for beers, you go and you transform it into that guy. Or if you play golf, you play golf.
Smoking is another one.
If you say they smoke, you smoke. Whatever you need to do, you do that. Now the problem with women is that sometimes it's not acceptable for them to be that sort of character, because it's almost like, for example, if you're in a team of 12 and you're the only woman, how do you be one of the guys in that situation? Because what's going to happen is that people are going to feel like anything you say that might be a bit stern, might be a bit rough, people won't accept it from you, but they'll accept it from a guy. Yeah. Have you experienced that before?
Yes. So obviously I'm not on any exec team at the moment, and I just, from outside in, knowing how the corporate industry and the office politics works, I can see why those women remove emotion from their conversations completely, because you do have to be this
sort of character.
You know, so don't be distracted by my emotions, don't be distracted by my skirt, don't be distracted by the way I look. Listen to what I'm saying and understand that I know what I'm talking about. My favorite quote in business is, you know, and I tell my coachees this, you know what you need to know and know a little bit more. Because as a woman and as a minority, sometimes when you go into these conversations, you have to know a little bit more. Just be prepared, because you do have to run that little bit faster. You have to be able to add that little bit more value for people to turn around and be like, oh, she deserves this seat at the table.
That's really,
do you know what I mean?
I think that's really sad, because I feel like women in a certain way have been forced to become more masculine in certain environments.
100%.
And the reason why I think that's sad is because there are certain times when you actually need a woman to just be a woman in that environment. Yeah. Because you're just thinking too much like men. Yeah. So for example, even at work sometimes it's like, I'm like my work environment is extremely male dominated. And sometimes I'm like, it'll be really good to just have a female to balance out the team. Yeah. Because sometimes there's just too much masculine energy. Yeah. And sometimes females will just give you another perspective that you don't expect. So you're just like, actually,
let me
that's
tell you
better.
something funny. So in my old team, just before lockdown, I was, so in my old team, the only kind of girl, because I say kind of, not that there was a half a girl, but so my age, in terms of my demographic, I felt like I was the only one in a team of just guys, because the other lady who's slightly more in her senior years to me. And when there are conversations, let's say we're all at lunch, right? So on the table of men, they're talking about cricket, they're talking about football, they're talking about the World Cup. Now, as somebody who doesn't actively follow, or unless there's like a specific, African Cup of Nations or World Cup, you probably won't catch me watching football.
Of course.
Just being realistic. So to follow those conversations can be quite hard, and to be in. And so sometimes I'll be like, oh, Aisha's here, let's talk about something else. It's like I would really like for you to, let's just be in our natural element. Don't change the conversations just because I'm here, but let's not always talk about football. So even when we do the socials, they will have their fantasy leagues, and we're sitting around we're all in the office and there's banter going back and forth, but it's almost like a private joke. Like
you don't get it. So
you're not in on it.
Interesting that you say that, yeah. So now imagine.
And then when they do come to me for like socials and stuff, it's more on the organization. Oh, Aish, this. So that's my womanly touch in terms of, helping them organize stuff. Or there's a bid come through and, I want to team up with you on this kind of thing. But the socials and stuff, it's just.
So I think that's really interesting that you say that, because imagine that being 10 times worse when, for example, like me, you work at a football club.
Yeah.
So when you actually work at a football club and then you got a woman in your department and your conversation all day is based on football and they don't watch any football, you have to remind yourself that there's a female in the room and she probably is not into sport that much, but she's working at a football club and you have to kind of be inclusive because of that. But
wouldn't you be into football if you're working at a sports club?
Because that's what I thought before I started working there. But actually, there's some jobs that just don't involve the knowledge of football. There's so many, like, you got to think about it. In a football club, there's not only market, but there's like finance. There's just jobs where you just don't really have to give a shit about what's happening on the pitch.
Okay.
So you just have to be good at your job.
Okay.
But these people are still surrounded about the conversations, and the thing about football as well is that it is the most laddish environment. So there's corporate world, and then like you see like in sports, it's like there's certain things that you don't get away with in the corporate world, where in sports people kind of straddle the line because it's kind of sports. Yeah, that's what it's like. So sometimes, like there's certain times I'm at work and I'm having a conversation, I would be like, guys, there's actually a female in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you have to actually be like, oh shit, there's actually a female in the room.
Yeah.
Gotta just.
I play up to it because my sense of humor is weird. So I will just say something random like, when was the last time Alan Shearer scored a goal? Like I know he retired. Like and then they just look at me. So that's my way of saying, guys, I'm here.
And then they'll look at you and be
they'll be like, what?
Alan who?
Aisha, have you been living under a rock? And then the banter starts kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
That's really good.
So I've just kind of learned to just kind of like ride the wave and, because at the end of the day, people will always be people. And this is my experience, especially when you're developing these soft skills. And that's where emotional intelligence really comes in. Yeah. It's kind of being aware of your surroundings and your audience in terms of, who you're speaking to or who you're engaging. Yeah. And then being aware of how you feel. So when I make almost myself as a little bit of a, like an entryway into a joke or whatever, I'm just kind of acknowledging the fact, or getting them to acknowledge the fact, hey, listen, I'm here, I want to kind of get involved in this conversation, but let's still make it fun in a way, but it's non-confrontational. It's very kind of like, it almost makes them, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So
I think that's interesting, talking about the soft skills as well. And like, I always say to like the mandem as well, it is so important, especially as a black man, and obviously clearly as a black woman as well. You've got to kind of understand both sides of the banter. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's different levels of banter in corporate spaces. That
you guys go way too far sometimes.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to but even if you remove females from the conversation, there's even man them that don't understand how to move in corporate. They don't understand that type of banter. Yes. They don't understand white banter. Yeah. So if you don't understand white banter, sometimes you can feel excluded. Yes. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, because we are the minority, it's one of those things you just got to teach yourself. Yeah. At a certain, there's so many men that don't even want to go. They don't want to do work drinks. Because they don't feel like it's there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They feel awkward.
It's a very different sense of humor. And I almost feel like I have the opposite problem, because obviously we spend so much time at work. Your colleagues are probably the people that you spend the most time 100%. With. So over the years, because I've always been in the corporate space, so over the years, it's almost like I've developed this persona, right? you know, the banter on the other side. So when I do meet like my school friends or like, you know, more kind of like my friend
Groups, yeah.
I'm almost the white girl of the
So, of
group,
the group.
because my banter is so different. Because they're just like, what? So I've just gotten used to being like getting that reaction,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And but anyway, realistically, I'm terrible at jokes because I will give you the punchline first and then explain the joke afterwards.
That's so dead. Very dry sense of humor. No, I get that. You know what it is as well? I think the reason why I kind of learned it quite quickly was because I went to school in South London, but I went to college in Essex.
Yeah.
So going to college in Essex kind of gave me that, like, I had a baptism of fire when I went to Essex, because their banner is different. But this is when I was like 16, 17, so it was a good age to like have that sort of social inclusion where it's like, all right, these people, this is what they do, like, all right, this is how they banter, like, very in-betweeners. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's a certain way, like, man, that we don't banter with ourselves. Like, these guys, they just go the full mile. So I had to become very comfortable. You know what it is as well? You have to become very comfortable with being the idiot.
Yeah.
With you being stupid.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of man them don't like to look stupid.
There's a lot of pride, especially in our culture.
So much pride.
There's a lot of pride.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I had to be comfortable being like, you have to be comfortable with the joke being on you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You can't take yourself too seriously.
No, you cannot take yourself too seriously. And too many man them take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
So they don't ever like the joke to be on them. Embrace the joke being on you. If it's funny, it's funny.
Yeah.
Do you know? That's what I always think, because you know what? At some point, it will go back to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you can embrace the joke being on you, then no one can really take the piss out of you.
Yeah,
'Cause you've
exactly. Exactly. So, like,
the joke.
what now?
What now?
What now? You know
Do you
what
know
I
what I mean? So I feel like, yeah, but we do kind of take ourselves too seriously. And I've seen man them in that sort of environment just crumble, because they're just like, they just don't know how to move.
And you know what? It's actually a key thing to relationship building, because when you laugh with somebody and you're able to laugh at yourself, and they let their guard down around you as well, like, then you start to build trust.
100%.
So when you are in that position where you're all kind of having that lighthearted banter, like something comes up, oh, do you know what? I can go and speak to Ade about this because I've got that rapport with you now. So now I feel comfortable taking things a little step further. And I'll be honest with you, like in the beginning, for me, coming into the business environment, in dealing with so many different people, like, you know, so we had the operations team, which was, I think the oldest lady, she was like 55. You have to learn to adjust and build rapport with different types of people. Yeah. You know, her banter was all about gin, and, you know, she was going to a gin factory and visiting this and that, but she had so much knowledge about the business. She'd been there for like 15 years. So if I had a client inquiry and they had a question, you know, I'll just go up to her and be like, you know, Steph, how much gin did you have last night? Yeah. And then we just have some sheer banter, and then she'll just turn that conversation into, do you know what, for this project, you need to speak to this person, because she'll tell you about their kids, you know, like, this is what he likes, kind of thing, if you approach him and ask him in this way. So I knew so many different things about our tutors, and then I would take a client project to them and they would want to work with me immediately on it as well. So I just feel like using banter is a tool. Yeah. Right? So when you go into these corporate spaces, like, by you not taking yourself too seriously, you're actually putting yourself ahead. I mean, obviously with 100%. Everything, there's a line, right? So you have to be able to command respect, but then have be approachable, especially as sometimes Black people, you know, we can, to other races, like, for whatever reason, I mean, their prejudice is on them 100%, I get that. But you almost have to acknowledge the fact that, you know, sometimes we can look a little bit standoffish. Our culture is very strong.
100%. You got
something to say.
Do you know the funny thing is, I was literally about to talk about what she just mentioned. Now, my thing is that Black culture, when the workplace, not even any form, so whether that's, you know, kind of in the city or, you know, in a football club or whatever, school, whatever setting it is, one thing I've realised, I feel like Black guys, over the years, we've started to allow ourselves to, you know, kind of go to socials, like, with the team and all that. Black females, on the other hand, and I'm going to just talk from personal experience, that standoffishness is still there. So they don't want to go to the socials. I remember having a friend in one of my workplaces, and I was saying, like, why do you like lunchtime? She literally, it doesn't matter, the team could all be there, she'll literally sit by herself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a common thing. I don't think it's just her. Like,
Yeah.
and then over the years, like I met up with her the other day, and she was like, "Oh, remember that time? Like, no, I'm the one that's actually creating all the socials." So, so there's that thing, that gap. I don't know why it's there. But I do think it needs to like kind of change.
Yeah.
How would you say that? Do you think that's?
I think it goes back to what you were saying about, you know, us being really proud and we don't almost want to be the butt of the joke. Like, you know, we have this cultural inside joke about the Karens, or, you know, we make fun, we make fun about the other side sense of humor.
But we don't like to be the joke.
But, you know, but we don't want to be the joke kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, that example, what you're saying, like you're blocking your opportunities by being that way, because, you know, like you guys talked about the golf course, that's when sometimes the biggest business deals get made.
1,000,000%.
Do you know what I mean? And, you know, in my role now, we get given a company card, you know, take the client out for lunch. Because you need to make people feel comfortable in your presence so they can actually tell you things. They can divulge where they're going strategically and where you fit in and stuff. And honestly, I feel like that's been the biggest difference between me and some of my other counterparts and why I was able to progress, because I don't think about, you know, even if I don't know, like I'm not an expert in the topic, like I will be an expert in you. If I'm going out to lunch with you, I've looked at your LinkedIn, I've known where you've come from. If you're in the industry, I know what you studied, and I could be like, oh my God, you speak French as a first language. I was born in France. Like, what area did you grow up? Like, so you need to be able to build up, because people like people who are similar to them. I need to be able to see a reflection in myself, in you, to be like, there is something about you that I can trust.
Yeah.
So therefore, now I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you feel like sometimes going back to what you're saying, black jokes go too far? And the reason I'll say that is this. You're talking about the Karens here. Like, obviously, black people go, oh, Karens. How, like, if it was like, if there was a joke about the Daniquas or the Shaniquas or what have you, would that be acceptable? Because I don't think it would.
It wouldn't. But here's the thing, if and this is how I kind of know where the line is, right? If you make a joke and that same joke was reversed back to you, if it wouldn't be acceptable to you, then you've gone too far.
So then that means you shouldn't be making jokes about Karens.
So, in a way, yes. but then when the Karen jokes are being made, is that coming from a place of hurt? We're creating a stereotype, because I'm not gonna lie, that persona exists. The Karens are there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and the Karens can be very difficult to manage.
Manage. The Karens do exist, and obviously, there's certain stereotypes that we have that are exaggerated, but definitely do exist.
Yes.
But we just don't like them being spoken about.
Exactly.
So, like I said, you know what it is? It goes back to what you're saying. If you are happy with the joke being on you, then it's fine.
Yes, exactly.
But I think we need to be a bit more comfortable sometimes with just the joke being on us.
I think we get entitled. Yeah, we do get entitled to making these jokes because, you know, of, I don't know, our history as black people. And, you know, that's the constant, you know, rationale for having permission to make those jokes. But then at the same time, if that was you in the workplace, like I had someone call me Shaniqua at work once.
Was that a joke?
You know, yeah, like, so we were all like, I think we were all talking, and I think the conversation was like, we were debating. I can't remember exactly what we were debating. And then, so this is the typical Essex guy, right? Blonde hair, you know, like crisp shirt, like Rolex watch. We're all sitting around, we're talking. And then I said something, and so I think I said it with a bit of, you know, passion, like, nope, this is gonna be like that. And he's like, all right, Shaniqua. And I'm just like, and that's
techie.
His name isn't Dave, and I was like, Dave, put it back in your box, Dave. And then everyone because I think the only other black guy knew exactly what I was doing, so he was dying of laughter, and everybody else looked really uncomfortable.
My question is this, I think there's a few things that, in terms of unpacking that. One, what is your relationship with this person outside work?
So we didn't really have a relationship outside of work. So, you know, obviously we'd go for like work drinks. Like he was a colleague, you know, but we're not texting each other and calling each other and blah, blah, blah. Like we're just completely different people in that regard. But we were comfortable with each other in the office. So we did make jokes. He talked about his life, you know, his kids and all of that. So it like, I don't know. I think for me, you can say that I'm quite tolerant, because again, I look at the person, right?
Yeah.
So when he said that, I know he was coming from a place of ignorance rather than racism.
Okay.
So he didn't say it because of hate. He said it because, you know, he was maybe trying to look cool in that conversation, and he was just maybe trying to use a bit of lingo.
But we're not able to be that ignorant. I couldn't imagine any of us in this room ever in the room going, "All right, Karen."
Not at work, no chance. And that's why I said that, like, that's why the key question I asked was, do you have a relationship with him outside work? That is the key difference. Because if he's just a colleague, that's wild.
Yeah.
Now, I have some white friends that are very dear to me, that they make jokes about me being Nigerian all the time. Yeah. And I'm not offended by it, because I know that they genuinely have a respect for my culture.
Yeah.
And I'll make a joke about them being white all the time, and they're not offended by it. But we have a personal relationship. Now, when you start bringing that into work, and you and that person are at the level, it's wild.
Yeah.
It is. I'll go to HR. I'm going straight to HR, and I'm kicking up a right old fuss. I'm taking 3 weeks off work because of stress. And if I can sue, I'm suing. What do you think this is for? 400 years of slavery?
Emotional and psychological trauma.
What? I'm going straight off work for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
With a trauma. But yeah, you know what? It's true. Like what you said is so true. It's like sometimes people just do, like you said, it's probably a bit ignorance.
It's more ignorance, you know, and like it's sad that there still is that level of ignorance.
Yeah.
And again, it's people's exposure, you know, like he felt comfortable saying that because he has a couple of black friends, and he's got the token Asian friend who also thinks he's black. And, you know, he constantly debates in the office that Ghana jollof is better than Niger jollof. Here, listen, you know, and this is coming from an Asian guy.
Does he have black friends?
Yes, according to him, he has a lot of black friends.
And then he's talking about Nigerian and Ghanaian jollof.
You know, he's like, I've tried both. I have a Ghanaian friend and I have a Nigerian friend.
The only thing people have is the audacity. That's the only thing they have.
The gentleman's code.
All right, and we're back. So, Aisha, basically, I wanted to kind of speak a bit about. I saw something on Instagram. I was literally trying to get it up, but the internet here is moving mad. I wanted to talk a bit about masculine energy. Yeah. You're a single woman. Obviously, I'm just putting that out.
All right,
there.
yeah, just put my business out there. All right.
Okay, sorry. She's not single. She is. So, you never know. Do you know what I mean? One of my followers. Do you know what I mean?
Can you ask your question, please?
Why do people get so defensive?
I'm using my masculine energy to command.
Do you know what's funny? Yeah.
You ask
But do you know what's funny? This is what's so funny. Because when I say that, there's a guy on the other end of the table. They're like, yeah. Obviously, if there's any like.
But
obviously, but you know what? It's not cool for women to say that. I get it, because women are supposed to be like, nah, I'm all right. I'm not searching. It's cool. That's cool. That's fine. Have you got it up? Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Actually, we've got it up. So let's play it. Actually.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
About this, and let me know what y'all think. But there has been times where I will be talking to a man, and I won't be feeling it, and people will be like, "Why?" And I'll be like, "He's just too nice." And people will look at me like I'm stupid. They'll be like, "What do you mean he's too nice? Like you want somebody mean?" And I figured it out. It's not that I want somebody mean. It's just what I'm looking for in a man is masculine energy that is dominant over my masculine energy, so it can bring out my feminine energy. Does that make sense? Like, if I feel like I have more masculine energy than you do, then I feel like you can't really be dominant about this, and let me know what y'all think. But there has been times.
Pause that, please. All right, so let me first ask you this question: Have you ever dated a guy that's too nice?
No.
Never. So all the guys you dated, basically. So does that mean that not that you haven't dated a guy that's nice, but no one that you ever felt like was too nice?
Yeah, no one that I've ever felt like was too nice, but obviously, yeah.
But do you understand the concept of a guy that's too nice?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
I think like it's just the kind of guy that almost tells you what you want to hear all the time, and there is this kind of need for them to please you, and it's very soft in a way. They have the best intentions in the world, I think the term these days that they're calling is maybe like simps. I hate that word, by the way.
Wait, what's it
It's
called?
just
Simp.
yeah. I don't believe people should be classified. I feel like, you know, we should let people be who they are authentically, right?
Yeah.
If that person isn't for you, then you make the decision to like whatever relationship, no relationship with them. But I don't feel like people should be shamed for how they are, you know. But I think women do have the right to have in their minds an ideal, because if we don't have these ideals, then it's kind of like, oh yeah, you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
So like, you know, they're now telling you like, this is what we want, this is what we're looking for. And I think it's kind of in line with what men say they want as well, because you guys very much want to be in your masculine energy. You don't want a masculine woman. So it goes back to the gender roles, right? So it's not mad if you think about it in that context. So if you're looking at the traditional gender roles and you're somebody who subscribes to that, then why would you want to be, you know, this too nice almost,
Person.
you know, again, there's the alpha and beta male kind of thing.
I get the whole thing about women saying that. I've never understood the too nice thing, but I do understand the fact of, oh, he just agrees with me all the time. I think that's stupid. I don't think you should just agree with anything a woman says. Like, that's just to get her. You're probably not going to get her.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
Yeah.
But the whole thing of a guy being too nice, I feel like there is something that attracts a certain type of woman to a bad boy. I don't know where exactly that comes from.
Yeah.
But, and I was having the conversation with somebody the other day, but I've seen too many bad boys, in quotation marks, corrupt girls who are actually very good. Do you know what I mean? Who've grown up in very good families, very good backgrounds, blah, 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 blah. And then they've kind of got with a guy who is just the polar opposite to the sort of upbringing that they've had. And it's the whole thing's kind of gone tits up.
Yeah.
And one thing I've always been intrigued with is what has attracted those women to those sort of guys. And it's probably a bit of that sort of stuff. Is maybe he doesn't always agree with you. He might put you in your place. But at the same time, those men, even though they've got a nasty side to them, they've got an overly protective side to them, or what looks like an overly protective side to them, which almost confuses women to make them feel like they care about you maybe more than they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know, like, do you have anything to add to that?
I think extracting the bad boy bit and parking that for a second, what I would say about the too nice bit, and I'll speak from my personal perspective. So if I use the term too nice, it's actually a reflection of like how I see myself. So as a female, I think that I'm quite decisive, like I know what I want, and I'm quite strong in character. And when I have my moments, I have my moments, right? So, so I think it's always good for me to be with somebody who is strong in their own mindset as well. Because as a person who has, you know, a certain level of logic in them, I know that I'm not always going to be right. Right? So I need you to have the courage. So I want a courageous man. So I need you to have the courage to kind of say, you know, I love you, but this is the, you know, this is the tough love moment that I need for us to be successful right now. Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? And it goes back to wanting a man who can lead. So a man who has those, because it's a leadership skill to be able to kind of, you know, assert yourself and have that assertiveness and have that confidence. And obviously as a woman as well, I'll have my timid moments, or like, you know, often we get the stick that, oh, you can't make up your mind, blah, blah, blah. And we'll have those moments as well. So it's always useful when you're with somebody who does have that drive and has that forward thinkingness. So if I'm like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna do today, and you're like, oh, baby, you sure you don't know? Like, like what the hell? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes it is useful to have that guy that's gonna be like, right,
This is what we're doing.
yeah. And that's sexy as hell. Do you know what I mean?
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
So do you think nice guys cannot lead?
I think nice guys can lead, but it's sometimes like, you know, when they say about communication, right? I think what's the stat, like 20% or even 10% of what of your communication is actual verbals. The other side of it is your body language, your delivery, your tone, your presence, right? Like, and I think again, this leads to why sometimes women like tall men, because they have presence. You know, they walk into a room and you're like, he's here. Do you know what I mean? And we need that kind of, it's, in French we say je ne sais quoi, like that little bit of a
Yes.
Sauce, basically.
X factor, do you know what I mean? So it's not that soft guys don't know how to lead. And don't get me wrong, I don't want, a military man 24/7 because you will piss me off. Like this is not a dictatorship, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about, again, having a balanced approach. Like, and I think sometimes guys really, really lack this. Like they can't step into almost, I don't know if you can call it a feminine energy, but they also don't want to step into that vulnerable space where they can soften a little bit. And sometimes that's when you're using that bad boy example, it's kind of like, oh, she likes me because I'm this Mr. Macho tough guy kind of thing. But then when she needs you to be soft, when she needs you to be vulnerable, when she needs you to be emotionally available, you're still in this. And it creates that friction, and then things go wrong.
I want to touch on something that you said. So in terms of the communication, in terms of you're talking, or let's say the good morning texts, and then for instance now it changes to let's say so you've got the communication, and okay, it's coming in a different way. That let's say the good morning text is stopped.
Yeah.
I feel like, I could be wrong in saying this, but I feel like most women do not acknowledge when that transition happens. So there's always sometimes a lot of arguments that happen in terms of, oh, you don't text anymore. Or it's like, well, I don't text anymore, but then I do this.
Yeah.
But then it's like, you're not recognizing me in this element here, basically.
Yeah.
So, okay, I then go back to let's say the good morning texts and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, you're only just doing that because I said it. And it's just like, okay, how am I, when I'm doing this, I'm wrong. If I'm trying to do something, let's say, elevate because I want to go beyond just in a sense the whole good morning text is, but in terms of, I'm thinking about you a lot more deeper than this.
Do you appreciate more? Is that a big thing for women? Morning text.
I think it's nice, like when I've received those texts, it certainly put a smile on my face.
But if he does it every day, it's just
She's
dead.
definitely smiling.
No,
No,
it's
she-
not,
that was an
because
inner
you
smile she had
find
then.
you find
If I had like an inner smile when that happened, like in the good
But if it's
morning.
every day, it just becomes dead. No.
like again, you're always thinking about things, as you as a man and the things that you don't value. The beauty of relationships is that you have to do things that the other person values. So if you're sending a good morning text and in your mind it might it's not always about you, Ade.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. You're correct. You're correct.
So
if the other person
you may
likes it,
not
do it.
value that, but that could mean everything to the
the
other
other person.
person. And to go back to what you were saying, I feel like, as you pointed out in the beginning, I'm single. But the thing is,
You said like I was making it like it was a. It wasn't a diss.
I'm joking. But I think the benefit of dating when you're a little bit older now is kind of like understanding the fact that you have those conversations almost up front. Now it almost becomes like a natural part of getting to know each other. People talk a lot about love languages and stuff like that. And again, it's like thinking about the other person rather than what you appreciate. If I know that, okay, you're not big on communication, but maybe your love language is acts of service. So instead of being the one to wait to receive a text or whatever, I might do something and drop you a text. Oh, look, I've done this for you, blah. And that's my way of like reaching out and showing you something different. If you know that you're dating somebody who, her love language is words of affirmation, then those little text messages here and there means the world to that person. You might see it as it's nothing. I could give a homeless person £20 and it's nothing to me, but to him that's dinner. Do you know what I mean? So I think everything is like has to be within context. And that's where sometimes guys go wrong. Like, I don't see the point of buying flowers, but
We had a conversation.
but it's a big thing. I remember one of my first arguments with a boyfriend was about like, why don't you ever buy me flowers?
For God's
And he'd
sake.
actually bought me a really expensive gift, and I was like, I don't care about that. I want
It's just
like,
ridiculous.
Can I ask? Right? So what is it about? And I think this will help a lot of men. What is it about the small things? Because women always say it's the small things.
Yes.
The small things. What is it about these small things?
These small things that just add up to big things, basically.
Yeah. Okay. What are the small things? Okay, talk from yourself.
wow,
Talk from yourself.
what planet are you guys from?
What is the small things? I'll probably talk from
from my perspective. I think for me, again, it goes back to the things that drive us as men and women, right? I feel like what you guys are driven by is completely different. Like, I tend to find guys are a lot less words, a lot more pragmatic, a lot more about sometimes the acts of service and, you know, and the physicality of relationships.
Yeah.
And I think as women, our drivers are naturally, we're very nurturing and, you know, we like to have that communication, that transaction, right? So I think, again, it's like the difference is there is almost, oh God, I've lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. You're saying difference in men and women.
I'm so tired. Wait, what was the original question again?
So what are the small things, basically?
The small things, yeah.
So, yeah, so I guess the small things is...
You're talking about what is part of what drives you as men and women.
Yeah, so I just think, like...
You think it's that small gestures, more or less, like...
No, I had
nothing
it in
big.
my head.
Nothing, like, no big gestures, but small gestures
Okay,
regularly.
so this is the point I wanted to make. It goes back to being vulnerable, right? Because I think when you do those small things, and those gestures, it's almost like you're showing an emotion rather than, because it's easy to buy somebody and give somebody a gift. You don't have to have emotion attached to that. But when you do the small things, it's like, oh, that's a sign of your affection. That's a sign of your love. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
And it's the details that often really, really matter. And that's what we read into. And then sometimes that, like, oh yeah, like he's definitely serious about the situation. We're going somewhere. Like, our imaginations can be quite wild, and those little things. And then that's why, again, it can backfire, because you need to be careful when you're doing those little things to somebody that you're not serious about, and all of a sudden 3 months in they're waiting for a proposal and you haven't done it. It's like, well, you've
3
kind
months
of been
in. Wow.
That's an
I know.
exaggeration, but it's like you've kind of been on that trail, you've been demonstrating that all along, so all of a sudden why have you flipped?
So that's really, so can I go back to what you're saying about, you know, you're saying that women, like those little small things show that men care. Well, the problem is that yes and no. Because the thing about men is that men can do a lot of those small things and they can still not care. So, for example, a man can treat like his girl and a girl he's trying to sleep with exactly the same, right? He cares about one, he doesn't care about the other. The other one is just about the result, right? So I wouldn't personally look at that when it comes to men, like the small gestures, because all a man really needs to do is find whatever her pushing point is, and then tap into that. But for me, going back to another key word you said is vulnerability. Now, I think vulnerability is the most important thing in a relationship.
Oh, facts, yeah.
Like, a lot of people, what do you want? Like, what you actually want is vulnerability. You want somebody that actually you can completely strip yourself down as a human being and be comfortable. And that other person is not offended by that person. And the other person actually, however flawed that person is, that other person completely embraces every single.
You want to feel safe. You want to, as you're being,
it's
being vulnerable. Yeah, you just want to feel safe.
That is, I feel like, what is the most important thing.
But I think more importantly, being seen, I've said it before, but like being seen, heard and valued in that space.
Exactly.
Matters so much.
In that space of being vulnerable. And that's for men and women.
Yeah, fact.
So this is not just like, I think men want that exactly the same as women want it. They might talk about everything else, but like even going back to stuff like love, I was thinking the other day, what's my love language? I realized my love language is music and humor. And it's not even one of the 5 love languages.
Right, yeah.
But for me, when I can connect to someone over one of those 2 things, that's
It's
powerful
big.
for me.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we just listening like this song or blah, 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 blah. That's very, very deep for me. And that's not even one of the 5 love languages, so to speak. But for example, my missus, she likes quality time. And all that sort of stuff. And again, like for me, all those other things, they might not be important to me, but like you said, they're important to her. So I have to find a way of fitting that in, because I know that actually that's important to her, because that's how she feels valued. And that's how and it's one of those things as men that we're going to have to be doing to the day we die.
Oh, yeah. Someone
You are going to have to assure your woman that you love her till the day you die.
Yeah.
You make that sound like such a chore.
Like, no, like I said, it is, no matter what men do find, that can be exhausting. I'm going to keep it 100%.
When you coach children,
yes,
do you not assure them about their potential and their
but
ability?
If some of them are shit, you just told their parents, listen, it's not going to bang. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not stuck with that child for the rest of my life.
Yeah, but but that's a cycle. My point is a cycle that you're consistently doing. Doesn't matter whether it's the same child or a different child. Like, you're on that wheel consistently. Because that's a career that you've chosen. You know, so you have to say, if you do this for the rest of life, you have to assure those children for the rest of you. So why is that different for your relationship?
Oh, because it takes so much more energy. It takes so much more
It's
energy.
a psychological barrier, Adi, because you have no. For me, yeah, if you have the ability to do something in one area, you should have the ability to replicate it in another area. The only thing that makes it different is how you perceive it, because the act in itself doesn't change. Assurance is assurance, no matter how you look at it.
But let me explain to you, a kid that I coach, if I'm coaching a kid football,
Yeah.
the relationship I have with a kid that I'm coaching football and the relationship I have with my wife is very different.
Obviously.
I'm in the
Would
position
hope
of
so.
I'm in the position of I'm in the position of power with this child. So whatever I say, he has to do.
Yes.
And if he doesn't do what I say, he's out.
Okay.
So I'm saying that again, it's just that's one way. The authority is one way. Whereas with your woman, and again, I might have him for 2 or 3 years, and then that's it. I don't have time with somebody else. But when it comes to your woman, it's constant negotiation, and no matter how much you put in to let them know that this is how much blah 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 blah, they're still gonna need that reassurance that you do care, that you do blah 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 blah, that you blah 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I said that sometimes it can be exhausting, because you're constantly having to reassure somebody that you actually do, that you actually haven't changed what you feel about,
But
that you feel the same way.
See,
And I think men do find that exhausting sometimes.
I hear that.
I just think it's a perspective thing. You're looking at it as work rather than it's just a way of life. If you make something your way of life, then it just becomes like
becomes
part
normal.
of you. And that's the whole point. Like, you know, showing your love language to somebody shouldn't be a chore, because
But that's your love language, though.
Human
Not
beings,
their-
we're not built to be alone. Like, we have the ability to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And the difference is whether we make the choice to do them or not. And sometimes in terms of how we perceive those things and the meaning of those things to us. Do you know what I mean? So I genuinely think like the barriers, men think these things are work. Whereas if you just live in that space, then you'll do it without even knowing that you're doing it.
You think so? I don't think those things can happen subconsciously. I think it's very conscious.
See, I agree with both sides, but I think for men there is an element of how much reassuring do you need for you to know that I'm there, because I'm not
Exactly.
going anywhere.
Exactly.
So like from a let's say logical standpoint, it's like, okay, I've declared by, let's say I've chosen you
Verbally.
as my wife.
Yeah.
I've verbally said it out.
Sign the
Everyone knows
contract.
it. Yeah, you know, we have kids together. We're building this empire together. Like, I'm not going anywhere at all, but yet I still have to, like, you still want me to do it on a daily basis, but then also at the same time, I'm still wanting to invest in you. Like, I'm showing my ways by investing in you a bit more. Like, okay, you help me, let's say you support me on my dreams, now I want to support you on your dreams.
Yeah.
But you still need me again to then assure you again. It's like, at what point does it stop? Or at what point does it become like you actually feel, do you know what?
Like, you're cool. Like, I
know,
get it. Like, this guy said.
I feel like you guys asking me this question is a bit like, at what point do I need to stop loving you?
No.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
but
interesting,
again, it's
interesting,
perspective,
interesting. Yeah,
because
perspective,
you're
yeah.
saying that's what I'm hearing. Because again, I don't see you guys doing this assurance work as work at all. I think it should be a natural part of your relationship, and you demonstrating that assurance can happen in a million different ways. It doesn't always have to be like, babe, I'm assuring you today, yeah? Man's coming back home, you get me, fam.
But like you
no.
said, if somebody likes
It doesn't have to be that way.
If somebody likes morning text messages,
Yeah, but I
That-
think
and-
as a reasonable, like, women are not that unreasonable. We're not animals. Do you
I
get,
don't think women are unreasonable
We're not
at all.
saying
No,
that at all. We're not
but-
saying
I don't think women are unreasonable. I feel like there's a large part of women that's governed by emotions, and I don't think that it's not them being unreasonable. But I feel like sometimes when a large part of you is governed by emotions, sometimes you just don't see things in the logical way that they work. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, and it's not a weakness. It's just that in some instances, like, the way men are built is better for certain scenarios, and the way women are built is better for certain scenarios.
We're different.
We're
That's
different.
how society works.
Yeah. So, for example, going back to what I was saying about that, it's almost like when you were saying that in terms of constantly trying to reassure somebody, in your head as a man, you might be like, well, I know that this is my woman, right? And I'm not going anywhere from this woman. I
Actually,
know that.
give me an example of how you constantly have to reassure someone, just so I can understand.
So, for example, like
Yeah.
I gave you, like, say, flowers on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Tuesday flowers, Thursday pancakes. Whatever it is that is like, oh, this is what makes you feel. Flowers.
Okay.
You're used to getting flowers every Tuesday. Okay, but if I don't get you flowers for a month,
I mean, have you ever had a girl that put you on a schedule like that realistically?
Like, they can't do that to me, unfortunately.
But you see,
No,
you're,
but
we're
it
can't
arguing
happen.
that's
Yeah.
never happened.
No, but there are females that do that.
There's
There are
females
females that do that.
there are
So I'm
ladies
saying
like
that there are females that
Yeah.
will expect that from a guy. I'm not that guy.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? It's the fact of the point.
But maybe
like
she
the flowers don't.
prefer the flowers to whatever you're. So in your mind, what you're doing is the elevation, but actually her preference is just the flowers. So again, it's about knowing who you're dealing with and kind of adjusting your expectations. Like I gave the example where, you know, one Valentine's, I got a really nice gift. It was pricey, right? But I realized throughout the course of our relationship, you've actually never bought me flowers.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just like, why? Like, I actually would have, like, it's Valentine's Day. I appreciate the gift. But, you know, I would want some flowers from you. Do you know what I mean? So, but that's what I wanted as an individual because I'm not really the type of person that, like, I'm attracted by materialistic gifts all the time. Do you know what I mean? Once in a while, I wouldn't say no. Do you know what I mean? It would be nice.
Of course.
But, you know, but the sentimental things are the things that mean, like, for example, you know, on our 5th anniversary, you take us back to where we met on
Very
day one.
nice.
Those little thoughtful things
Nice.
shows me actually you're thinking about our relationship and you're thinking about, you know, you're seeing the meaning in things like I do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
No,
mean?
it is. For my personal theory is that anything that feels routine, I'll get bored of.
Yeah, guys
But
don't. You
that's
don't like
firstly for me.
routines.
Like, for example, if like say the missus was like, oh yeah, every Thursday I'm gonna cook you your favorite meal, I'll just get bored of it. I'll just get bored of you cooking it all the time. So
The sentiment goes.
the sentiment will just go. So like, and you know what it is? Even if you stop doing it, one, I wouldn't feel like you cared about me any less, and two, I just wouldn't care because the sentiment in it will just go. Now, for example, for women, that might be different because if he is giving you good morning text every single day, he doesn't do it. Actually, you like the sentiment of that. So actually, you want that.
But then again, isn't that a conversation? Because why have the good morning text stopped? Has it stopped because you've moved in together? Then that means you don't need them because you can wake up and just say good morning, babe. Do you know what I mean?
I think women are obsessed with men keeping up the same energy that they had when they started dating them. And I think that to a large perspective, it can never be exactly the same.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like women all, like, you know, women always say, oh, but when we used to date, we used to blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, we're not anymore. And it doesn't mean I love you any less, but it's almost like, I know this sounds very business-like, but it's like you're trying to woo a client, innit? Like, really and truly, how much effort do you put into keeping the clients you need to wooing them? Like, most times...
A lot these days, you know.
Not the same, though.
What's the stat? Like, you know, 90% of your business comes from 80% of your business comes from 20% of your, you know, your customer
repeat
base.
business.
Because you nurture that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, you check in. So I might not speak to my key clients every single day, but we have a cadence of communication plan where we're like, do you know what? They expect a call from me once a quarter to review how everything has gone. And relationships are like that because if we go from 0 to 100, it's like, whoa, what's changed? Like, are you all right? Are you like, did you bump your head? But if we go from 0 to 20 to 30, and then maybe one day you kind of get back to 100, it's like, you know, because whether we like it or not, we are creatures of habit. There are routines in everybody's life. And to an extent, that gives us stability, that gives us confidence, that gives us comfort, right?
Yep.
So, you know, for example, we're using the work example, you've got the assurance of having a permanent job. You know that, you know, that job is always going to be there for you. As long as you perform, the expectations of the company is set. As long as you perform, as long as you know, meet the company obligations, you don't feel like resigning, you've got a job. You wake up Monday to Friday, you wake up, there's an expectation for you to do something. There's a certain level of stability because you know at the end of the month, you're going to be able to pay your bills and do whatever it is that you need to do, right? But then again, look at contractors. They don't have the assurance of having a full-time permanent job, right? So when the contract is coming to an end, there's just that, oh, where's my next contract coming from? Where's my next gig? So it's like, you know, there is that constant tippy-toe. And relationships need that assurance in a way. So it doesn't have to be as structured and as calculated as you're making it seem. I feel like that's your imagination a little bit.
One of my favorite statements here is love is only a reflection of your morals and values.
Absolutely.
Period, right?
Yep.
So that means that love is not this arbitrary thing that we see in Disney films, like a lot of women are led to believe.
Nope.
But actually, depending on how you've been raised and what your morals and your values are, that actually reflects what you believe love is.
Yes.
So what happens is that a lot of people start dating. And when a lot of people start dating, it's all airy fairy Disneyland. You're taking trips to Winter Wonderland, Paris, at all these places, holding hand in Regent's Park, bruv. All these things you're doing when you're dating because
holding hands.
Because it's all about the infatuation that you have with somebody else. Do you know what I mean? It's a beautiful time.
Yeah.
Once you get past that stage, you're like, actually, life needs to happen.
Yes.
And how do you fit into what my morals and values are in life, and how do I fit into yours?
Yeah.
What is our strategy going to be over the next 5 or the next 10 years?
Yes.
So the conversation moves away from being very romantic and what have you. Now it's like, okay, cool. Are you trying to settle down? What are your how do you think about kids? Blah blah.
Yeah.
Like everything becomes extremely strategic.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you get to that phase, a lot of the lovey-dovey stuff might take a backseat because actually now we're trying to plan life.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But I actually think that at that moment, that is actually the most powerful, because what it is that a lot of people don't actually get to that stage.
Nowadays, not anymore.
No, most people break down after the lovey-dovey stage. Yeah. So they don't even get to the part where it's like, let's start building, let's start planning, let's start strategizing, blah, 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 blah. Because they get lost in that stage and they're not even thinking about actually, how am I trying to structure the life over the next 10, 12, 20, 30 years? And does this person, one, are they an asset? And two, do they fit into that? A lot of people don't really know how to get past that stage.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the dating dynamic is in shambles
right now.
Like right now.
Clubhouse.
I literally, like, I'm scared for like our generation and what love and marriage looks like in the future, because like, you'll be surprised, but I 100% agree with you. I actually don't feel like love is enough to sustain a relationship.
No chance.
Like, if you are gonna be realistic, it's not enough. Like, love is a starting point. And that's where you start. That's where you have a foundation. And when things get tough, you draw on that love. Do you know what I mean? But it's not the thing that feeds you on a daily basis. It's not the thing that keeps you successful. You know, I think the success and the pillars, the cornerstones of a relationship is basically having two very determined people. It's two very determined people to say, do you know what? This is
this is the agreement. This is the agreement that we've made, and this is what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So I am determined not to let us fail. Do you know what I mean? I am determined to stay in this situation with you. But the thing is, and here's what's tragic, right? We live in a culture that is very, very transactional, and it's immediate, and we want to go from 0 to 100, like immediately. We don't want to do the tough work, and we don't want to stick around when things get hard, because guess what? You can pick up your phone and there's 10 baddies on Instagram. Like, my DMs are popping. Like, why am I gonna work on this with you for? Like, why am I gonna struggle? I don't want to struggle.
Options.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, this one is offering me trip to, like, I don't know, like Maldives. You know, and you're here trying to take me to Amsterdam. Are you mad? What, 2 hours away? I could be on a flight for 7 hours. The thing is, we live in this transactional place, and I think it's that mindset. You know, if we can shift back that mindset to just being like, stop looking for the next best thing. There's always going to be someone better looking. There's always going to be someone who's more built, who's slimmer, who's a bit like taller or whatever. But it's just kind of like knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and then also choosing. Because I think you choose, like, you know, some people feel like you don't choose who you, but I feel like you do. Choose the person that you love and bloody stick to it. Do you know what I mean? Make that commitment to make that situation work, and you'll be all right. We don't make that commitment. We don't make that commitment to ourselves, and we don't make it to the people.
You know what it is? I feel like a lot of people are very afraid to be vulnerable in front of people, and that's like
100%.
even man, I told man
we've broken each other.
Yeah,
Kevin Samuels has broken everybody. You know, let me not even start that subject. But,
he's broken everybody.
Like,
but
it's true.
I feel like with people, it's almost like people are afraid to be vulnerable in front of people, and which is a big thing, because we spoke about vulnerability and how important that is in any sort of relationship. And it's almost like you said, it's two people that are trying to be extremely determined to not fail. And also as well, people are not thinking to themselves, how can I be an asset to this other person?
Nope.
Facts.
So it's almost like,
what do you bring to the table?
What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table?
I am the table.
All right, how am I going to be an asset to you?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, you have to go into be in that mind space of, no matter where you are in life, and this is not a financial thing at all, but no matter, when you've really taken time to know somebody, you will know the deficiencies they have. How am I trying to help you better those deficiencies you have? Nothing to do with finance. This is just as a person, because this is personal development. Like, it can be with anything that you struggle with. But people always, it's like, oh, what you do? What are you doing for me? What are you doing for me? What are you doing for me? And a lot of those conversations are based around finance. When you strip away finance, is finance the only way you can better somebody? No.
But also, you have to be careful though when saying that, because I think some people might read it as you're trying to change the person.
But you know what it is? We all need to change.
Yeah, I get that. No, I think
What,
especially in terms of like growth, but in terms of like relationships, to look at it like, okay, when you're trying to how can I make this person better?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're trying to now change how the person is, basically. I need you to become more like this in order to fit, like, let's say,
what I think.
What I think
is that.
Do you get, rather than kind of like, oh, how can we work together to build each other so that it works in tangent for us?
For us, 100%.
Do you get what I'm saying?
But I feel like most people, maybe not everybody, but you'll speak to a lot of people, they are aware of their deficiencies. Now, the problem they struggle with is actually getting past those deficiencies. And a lot of people have that sort of idea of like, oh, I know what when you speak to people and it's like, oh, I'm trying to do this, but they just can't start, or they can't get past a certain phrase because they lack motivation or what have you.
It's like we don't hold ourselves accountable.
Exactly.
Like what we do now in our culture, especially when you look at social media and all the arguments, the stuff that happens on Clubhouse, is like we hold everybody else accountable but except ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, why can you not sustain a relationship? Oh, I've met nothing but dickheads. No, like who is the common denominator?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? You may not be the overarching issue, but acknowledge that there is an issue, and that's a starting point.